Hi, it's Karen Griffiths here. Just thought I'd do another little short video, this time about looking at the different sorts of indoor housing that you can use for your Serama, and which are sort of the ones that I found the most successful, particularly in terms of keeping red mite out, and also just ease of handling. So we're going to have a look inside my Serama sheds and compare various different sorts of housing that I've managed to acquire over the years. So here we have the first set of cages that I managed to buy, and this is from a company that made particularly for rabbits, but these are so-called rabbit breeder cages, and they are, some of them are, you've got dividers in them, so you can actually pull the dividers out and make a longer cage if you've got breeding birds. And I've used these for a long time now, and they're very, very sturdy, very solid. Rats have never got into them, but they do have some pretty major design flaws. The first of which is the fact that there's two sets of catches. So of course your first instinct is to open that catch and pull down. Of course, what immediately happens is the water starts emptying out, and if you've got any feeders in there, then you've got a bit of a nightmare. So what you have to do is undo these side catches and lift the whole thing out, which is really very awkward. And the other issue, that sort of complexity, is reflected in the fact that it's not very good for red mite. You can see it's got loads and loads of little places for them to hide, and you can see over the years where I've kind of been battling them, these sort of dark marks and the blood marks where they've been squashed. And if you can see in the far corners there, they're pretty red mite free at the moment, but I have to spray them all the time. And there you can see that dark mark. That's where I've actually used a little flame, kitchen flame gun thing to try and keep on top of them. These are the dividers, and the other issue that I found with these dividers is that the channel goes right down to the ground, which means that if you pull them out, you find that the shavings tend to get into the base down here, and then it's actually really quite hard to get them back inside. And they're so carefully engineered that if you can't get them back in completely, then these catches won't work. So I'm going to have a bit of a struggle with that one. So all in all, some quite major issues. Just show you these perches. These are actually pigeon perches, and they are quite good because, as you can see, if there are any red mite present, this is sort of the dead remains, you see the eggs and the poo and the actual red mite themselves very quickly, so it's a quite good indicator. I think you can actually hang these up if you want to, but I just tend to use them on the floor. Some of them use them, some of them don't. So this is a second set of cages. Again, these are just a tier of 3 rabbit breeder cages that I got off Pre-Loved or eBay or somewhere. Again, really, really solidly built. Nothing's going to get inside these, but again, I've got problems with them, which I'll show you. So like that last set of cages, these ones again drop down, so if you've got birds inside them, you know, if you're wanting to, obviously you've got birds inside them, if you're wanting to top up the feeders, you obviously have to drop the whole front down. And the other, so of course you have to watch you don't spill all your food and your drink. But the other issue, again with these, they were homemade by the guy that I bought them from, who was obviously pretty good at woodwork, but what you discover is that they're so well engineered, in order to get them shut again, you have to get all the bedding out around the hinges, otherwise this wretched thing, you can't get them keep things shut. So look, again, I'm going to have to pull this right down, clean it all out before I can actually shut it. Again, it wastes time, you know, and when you work full time like I do, and you've got to do all this in the morning, and it's an issue. So you have to do that. And then, again, I don't know whether rabbits are different to chickens, but there's just so many places that the red mite can hide, and I'm having to constantly spray all these joints. Okay, so let's see if we can actually get the thing shut. I've just spent 10 minutes trying to get that divider back in its place. I managed in the end with a pair of scissors, but it took me quite a while. So not very good. And another major issue with these ones is that, again, there are so many places for red mite to hide, and even I spent a long time killing them inside, only to discover that they were hiding between the racks. So I sprayed that yesterday, so it's pretty clear now, but I have to lever things up, and they're not light. So yeah, not great. Far too many hidey holes for red mite in them. So I have to be very careful when I'm using those, especially if I've got some broodes in there. And again, you see, I can't shut that without having to remove all that. And none of this stuff is removable. You see, if you'd actually made these boards removable, it might have been a little bit easier for me. And much easier to clean out. And of course that's another thing, those last ones you saw were smooth all the way through, so they're very easy to shovel stuff out of. These ones are much more difficult because they've got that fixed in the front. So this lot here, these are really very sort of cheap cages that I bought. Again, you can use dividers between them, but they're so small that I don't bother with them really. But again, they've got so many places that red mite can hide, and they are complicated. So at least you've got two doors so that you can leave the water and feed on one of the doors and open the other one. And they have this funny little thing that you pull out. Again, it's cheaply made, and you can see over the years it's beginning to laminate. And again, lots of places for red mite to hide, so I'm constantly having to keep an eye on those. They are at least smooth, flat, so you can scrape your bedding out easily. Don't have that lip like the last one, so that is one advantage. And these ones, the dividers they don't go right the way down to the floor. Should you do? No, they don't go right the way down to the floor. So and they're not as tightly engineered either. So you've got a bit of a chance that you can get a divider easily. Again, far too many places for red mite to hide. You can see that there's been colonies up there in the past. So again, not perfect. And you have places that red mite can hide underneath. Okay, so I'm having again to constantly keep an eye on that, which is a bit of a nightmare, as I'm sure you all know. And these things tend to come a bit loose too, and I've had birds push them off, and because they're so old and a bit rusty, they're quite hard to tighten up. So something else to have a look at when you're buying second-hand stuff. The advantage is that they're very light, so at least unlike these big rabbit breeder cages, these are stuck in here, I'm never getting these out. These ones you can at least get outside on a sunny day and spray everywhere, because of course, as I've discovered, you clear the red mite from inside, but they're actually on the top underneath things. You know, if you leave if you leave a drinker or a feeder on top, you might pick it up in the morning and find it's got red mite underneath it if you've got a really bad infestation. So yeah, they will live everywhere and they will travel quite long distances. Okay. Now, when I first started with Serama, I used or I adapted rabbit hutches, and these are the two that I used to use in the sheds. And they've got all the problems that these rabbit hutches come with. Obviously, you've got this felt on the top, and this is why in the end I had to stop using them, because the red mite were getting underneath that felt, and although I was spraying madly, I was just never getting on top of it all. So not to be recommended. They were quite useful in terms of size. I actually just temporarily zip tied some dividers, took out the plywood that was here, that was for the sort of the nesting area, and put some wire on the front, and made two reasonably sized little cages. But they're a bit flimsy, and not quite so many places for red mite to hide inside, but enough. You can see that it's relatively smooth. So if I'd actually been sensible and painted them, I might have perhaps prevented red mite from living in these joints here. And nice smooth fronts, so easy enough to clean out, but not suitable, particularly because of the felt roof. And then finally we come to my most recent cages, and I'm lucky enough to have a friend who's a very, very good carpenter, and so I specified these from him, and they're so far, touch wood, working really, really well. I got a bank of 6 there that have dividers, and then this is a bank of singles, and you'll see from right from the start that all the framework is on the outside rather than on the inside, so there's fewer places for red mite to hide. Very, very simple, plain door, just with enough of a lip here to stop shavings from being chucked out. Obviously weld mesh wire, and then inside completely plain, no bits of wood stuck here and there, completely smooth, so it's easy to clean out. And he even apparently ran a bead of glue around the seams, although it doesn't look like perhaps at the top he remembered to do it. But very easy, in other words, to keep on top of. And for you'll see, for perches, I'm just using these big old blocks of wood for them to just stand on. You can hoik them out, you can spray them, and then pop them straight back in again, and it's very, very easy to see whether you've got red mite or not. Just cut a little hole, that's what I do with all of them, to fit these vacuum drinkers through. Very good. Quick and easy. This is the one. These are the ones with the dividers. These cleverly just put a little sort of oops. Cut out there. They also don't go down up to the base of the cage, so nice space, and there's absolutely no way that the dividers can get jammed. With a little bit of tolerance as well, so easy in and out, and then they're easily turned like that, unlike the struggle that I was having with those first ones that I showed you. And again, I've used in this one I've got the pigeon rests, but I say some of the Serama, they just don't bother using them, whereas these blocks of wood, they all seem to like using those. And as I say, you can just pull them straight out and clean them off, wash them down if you want to. So there you go. Very adaptable, smooth, obviously easy to clean out, as I was saying, and very, very quick to fettle in the mornings, which is kind of what you want when you are short of time. You've still obviously got the joint between them, but I lever that up every time I clean the cages out and give it a good old spray and make sure there's nothing hiding inside. And the other thing that my friend made was these legs. So they're all raised up. These ones not so much, because I wanted the height particularly for my Japanese bantams, but they are just a little bit above the floor because I obviously didn't have a lot of headroom in the shed. So they're about as tall as they can be and as high up off the ground as they can be. So yeah, all in all, I'm very pleased with those. And then I'll just show you some of the outside cages that I've got for the summer. So here we go, we've got some of the birds outside. I only put them out during the day, but bring them in at night into those sheds because these cages quite clearly aren't dog or fox proof, so it's always a bit of a risk when you do something like this, but I do think they do need, well, I know that they need sunshine to produce vitamin D in their feather oil, so very important. So these are old show cages that I've acquired, and I have bits of plastic that let a bit of light through, but also if it rains they stop the feed getting soaked. It's always a bit annoying when your feed has been ruined, because the birds obviously won't eat it when it's wet and it rapidly goes off. So yeah, they've all got a little perch in there, and the boys just spend all day sat on those perches yelling at each other. You've seen it before, and it's a bit obscured by my Faverol pen, but this is the housing that I use for my Serama girls, and they'll happily obviously live together. It's got a little bit of windbreak on the back there that you can see. When the weather really warms up, I tend to take that off so that they get plenty of light and air through. Really good. I use in this outdoor area, I don't use the shavings, I tend to use the wood chip. It's called easy bed, horse bedding. And it's a bit less likely to go into a mush if it gets wet. The roof has begun to leak, so I've had to have a tarp on it over the winter, but I will probably save up my pennies and get some tin or I forgot what it's called, but you can get this stuff that's sort of corrugated. Okay, and it's got a nice box at the back. Nice big one. It's a bit big for Seramas, that's the only thing. In the past I found that some of them always end up on the floor asleep, the youngsters, but by now they all know each other, so they all pretty much roost on these bars. They are not great. I mean, it's a very big area and I do get red mite in here regularly. I never seem to be on top of it anymore, but the bars do at least lift out. You can see I've actually got Vaseline all over the ends of these ones in a desperate attempt to try and keep control. So yeah, you can lift them out and give it all a good spray. And I've got one of these testers just to see whether there's red mite in there. Yeah, got some, so that was sprayed probably a week ago. So yeah, it's not great. Now you can't get 5-cam W. It's just a case of just keeping on top of them all, rather than actually getting rid of them completely. So yeah, I won't pull that tester out because it will just be too horrible. Okay, so there we go. That's where they all live. We fight a constant battle with red mite. and as you can see, broodies. Very, very cross broodies. So I need to take those eggs away from them. Okay, so there we go. My ongoing battle with red mite and the various sort of tips and tricks that I have found in terms of housing to try and keep on top of it all. So good luck.